Hello and welcome to Baited Gaming. My name is Joe, and today we're going to be starting a Let's Play of one of my favorite games on the Nintendo DS, Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney. Phoenix Wright is a courtroom point-and-click adventure game in which you're given a series of cases, and it's your job to prove your clients to be not guilty or innocent, depending on what the case is. Through gathering evidence from the crime scenes, as well as finding contradictions in the actual testimonies of the witness. So we're going to go ahead and get started right away with the tutorial. So we're going to start a new game here. Got my coffee. I'm good to go. Funny story behind this coffee cup. I'm not even a Braves fan. Jesse, who is my friend, roommate, and fellow content creator, he is a huge Braves fan, and I purposely use his cup on a regular basis just to spite him, and I think it's hilarious. He doesn't like it so much though. So anyway, we're getting into the first case. You see here we got our victim, our actual killer, who's going to try and pin it on somebody else, and unfortunately the person he's going to try and pin it on is one of our childhood friends. So we're going to get through these cutscenes pretty quickly here. So we're going to head over to the courthouse, into the lobby, where we're going to meet a few more characters. So here we have Mia Fey, who is the head attorney at the law offices of Fey and Company. And she's going to be helping you out with the first trial. This is basically a tutorial trial just to show you how the game mechanics work, making use of the court record, and how to find flaws in the witnesses' testimonies. And she's going to describe a little bit of what the case is. And we're going to learn about the defendant as well. So Phoenix claims that this particular person who's the defendant is sort of the reason why he became an attorney in the first place, and you'll find out a little bit more about that in future cases. So we want to help him. He's a good guy, a little bit of an idiot and a little bit of a drama queen, but he's a good person. So we're going to go ahead and meet our client now. So this here is Larry Butts. He is the defendant in this case, and we are here to prove him innocent. So he's obviously pretty unhappy because the person that was killed was his girlfriend Cindy. So he's gonna cry about it a bit, be particularly unhappy. And obviously he's wondering who actually did it, and the newspapers say it was him. So now Phoenix is gonna describe a little bit about how this is his first case. So Phoenix and Larry have been, as you saw, friends since grade school, and Larry's just been an unlucky person for most of his life, where he just constantly gets in trouble, or he's just in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yeah, he just has terrible luck. Okay, so now we're going to head into the courtroom. We're going to meet the judge, the prosecutor for the case, and we're going to get into it. So this is Winston Payne. He's the prosecutor. He's known as what's called the rookie killer, because he tries to trip up all the rookie defense lawyers. Turn the volume down a little bit. It's a little loud. Let's go with that. That should be better. Okay, so now the defense is ready. Now the judge recognizes that this is a first trial, so he's going to quiz us a little bit. So he's going to ask us who the defendant and who the victim are in this case. So the defendant's name is Larry Butts, as we saw before, the crying dude wearing all the orange stuff. Alright, so now he wants to know the victim's name. Uh-oh. And Phoenix doesn't seem to remember, but there's an easy way to do it. So, Mia's going to tell us to just go take a look in the court record, and we can figure it out from there. So, the way that we would figure that out is if we go into the court record, we can click this autopsy report, and we can see right here that her name is Cindy. Also, we can go into profiles, and it'll show us all the people related to the case so far. So we have Mia Fey, Larry, who's the defendant, and then right here, Cindy Stone, the victim in this case. So we're going to answer Cindy Stone. So now the judge thinks that now he wants to know what the cause of death was, and you'll find that out again by going into the court record, checking the autopsy report, and you'll see right here, cause of death, loss of blood due to blunt trauma. So we're going to go back and answer with hit with a blunt object. Okay, so now that we've answered all those questions, the proceedings can get underway. So now Winston Payne, the prosecutor, is going to explain in detail how the victim was killed. So we have this statue of the Thinker here, which we saw in the opening scene, and that was the murder weapon. Okay, so now that we have seen that, it's been added to our court record, so we can use that as evidence for further testimonies. Yep, so this is just me reminding us to make sure we make use of the court record, and that evidence is what we need to use. Okay, so now we're going to get our first witness here. So they're going to call the defendant immediately to the stand, and he's going to give his testimony. Okay, so we're going to find out right here that Cindy had recently just dumped Larry, and that she was overseas seeing other men, and that's going to make him particularly unhappy. Yeah, she was just in Paris the day before the murder. And he doesn't believe any of it because he thought that they were so in love. So now Prosecutor Payne's going to introduce the passport, which shows that she was indeed in Paris the day before the murder, which will come in very handy later on. So now Larry's kind of understanding that this Cindy was not exactly who she said she was, and she was kind of just playing him. Yeah, so they're just kind of making their point here. Yeah, we really don't want Larry answering that question, so we're going to try and jump in here. Yeah, we're going to stop him from answering that. Yeah, so Larry's pretty unhappy with the unfoldings that have just happened. So now the prosecution has established motive, so now we need to go in and make sure that he does not get convicted. So he's going to ask a few more questions, and specifically about where Larry was on the day of the murder. And unfortunately for us, he was at the apartment complex. So we want him to answer honestly, because we'll see exactly why he was there. So we're going to send him a little telepathic message to tell the truth. We're going to point at him a little bit. So now everyone in the jury and the judge know that he was there on the day of the murder. So this is looking pretty grim for us. But Larry says that she wasn't home. And Prosecutor Payne says that he's lying. So now we're going to get another witness on the stand who, if you remember from the original cutscene / video, is the real murderer. But we don't know that yet. We, the audience, know that, but Phoenix Wright does not know that yet. So we have to prove that this person is the real murderer, and he's trying to pin it on our boy Larry. So this is Mr. Frank Sawit. Again, you can recognize him from the original cutscene. So he claims to be a newspaper salesman, but what he actually is just a regular burglar who just uses the newspaper sales as a cover to determine when people are going to be out of town, and then when they're out of town, he ransacks their apartments. But unfortunately for Cindy, she came home while he was in her apartment, and not thinking correctly, he just bashed her in the head. So now we have to prove it. So this is the testimony part of the game, where he's going to say a series of statements, and then we have to go through each of these statements and determine which parts of them are lies, or try to get in more information on some of the statements. So this is probably the most important part of the game. So we want to pay attention to each of the words that he says in these statements. So now he's telling the story of what happened that day. So he's going door to door selling newspapers. Saw Larry, thought he left the door open. So he looked inside the apartment and saw the dead body on the ground. So then he says he was afraid, was able to go outside, and called the police immediately. Now says that the phone in her apartment wasn't working, but if he said he didn't go inside, how could he go in and grab the phone and know that it wasn't working? So he says that he went to a nearby park and found a public phone, and that it was 1 p.m. exactly. And he recognizes the person that was running away from the scene of the crime as the defendant, Larry. Alright, so we need to try and find some holes in this man's testimony. Okay. So now we're going to find out that there was a blackout in the apartment at the time of the murder for a 6-hour period. So Mr. Sawit says that he could not use the phone, and Prosecutor Payne is going to give us evidence that there was an actual blackout during that time period. So if we go into the court record, we can see that there was a blackout from noon to 6 p.m. on the day of the murder. Okay, that's going to come in handy here. Okay. So now we're going to begin our cross-examination. And Phoenix seems to be a little confused as to what that is. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to press the witness on each of their statements and try and figure out some more information and find contradictions in it. So clearly this guy is lying because we know that he's the real murderer. We just need to prove it using evidence. Okay, so just got to get through the talking here, and then we'll go through each of the statements. So now the first thing that you want to do when you get into a witness's account is you want to press the press button on each of the statements. What that's going to do is going to allow you to get some more information on what's going on. So he was going door to door selling subscriptions, and he saw a man fleeing. So we're going to ask him some more questions about it. So he's going to say that the only reason he took notice of Larry is because he was quote-unquote suspicious. Okay, so we're going to move on to the next statement. Thought he must be in a hurry because he left the door half open behind him. So we're going to ask some more questions about that. Okay. So he saw the door half open as Larry left, and he's going to look inside the apartment. And he's going to claim that curiosity is what caused him to open it up. Okay, so now we're going to get to where he saw a woman lying there dead, but we're going to ask him if he really knows for sure that she was dead. Okay, so he says that there was blood everywhere, so that gives us reasonable cause to believe that she was actually dead. Okay, so he quailed in fright and found himself unable to go inside. So he didn't touch anything in the apartment. So now he says that he didn't touch anything, but we know from his next statement that he grabbed the phone. So we're going to pass this one. However, the phone in her apartment wasn't working, so how would he know that unless he stepped inside? Yeah, so now that we've caught him up in a lie, now he says that he didn't go into the apartment, even though we clearly know that he did because he grabbed the phone and knew that it wasn't working due to the blackout. Okay, so now here we're going to find the contradiction. I remember the time exactly. It was 1 p.m. But we know from the court record that, according to the autopsy report, she died between 4 and 5 p.m. So there's no way that this 1 o'clock p.m. is correct. So we're going to throw this evidence in his face. So we're going to ask him if he's sure that he found the body at 1 o'clock. Yeah, it's definitely a contradiction based on the autopsy report. And we get to hear some of the best soundtrack part of the game. The music in this game is fantastic. So we're going to point out the fact that there was no body to find at 1 p.m. because the crime hadn't been committed until 4 or 5 o'clock. So he's starting to sweat a little bit. He knows that we're on to him. So, the prosecutor's going to try and jump in, see if he can understand. Yeah, so the judge understands, and he wants to know why he's so certain that it was 1 o'clock when he saw the body. Mia's going to congratulate us and tell us to keep going, finding more things. Oh, now he suddenly remembers. So now he's going to give testimony on the actual time of discovery and how he knew it was 1 o'clock. Okay, so when I found the body, I heard the time. Okay, there was a voice saying the time. It was probably coming from the television. But that can't possibly be true because there was no television that could have been available because we know that there was a blackout from 12 to 6. So as soon as we're able to, we're going to throw that evidence in his face and see what happens. So he thinks that the victim was watching a video program, but we know that can't be true. Yeah, so he's just making up lies at this point, and they're not even very good. But the judge doesn't seem to understand, so we're going to go ahead and cross-examine. Yeah, so we know what to do. We're going to go right to that second statement. So we're going to pass this first one. He said that he heard the time. So there was a voice saying the time. It was probably coming from the television. But we know that's not true, so we're going to present the blackout record as evidence to contradict that. Yeah. Yep, there we go. So we found the contradiction. And there's no way that he could have heard a television or a video. So we're going to need some more proof from him that he saw what he actually saw. So we're going to need an explanation. Yeah, so he's finding it quite puzzling that... Oh, now he remembers. Okay, good job, Mr. Sweat. You're a real credible witness. So he's going to give testimony again on what he saw. Again, what he really saw about hearing the time. So he didn't hear the time, he saw it. There was a table clock in the apartment, wasn't there? Yeah, the murder weapon. The killer used it to hit the victim. But we know that the murder weapon was that statue of the thinker. So something seems a little suspicious here. So we're going to present the thinker at this statement here, the murder weapon statement. So that must have been what he saw. He saw a clock. But how could that possibly be when it was a statue that was the murder weapon? This judge is useless. Okay. Let us get in there. Okay, so we're going to go right to that third statement, because we know what the murder weapon actually was. So, there's a table clock. Yeah, the murder weapon. Okay, so now we're going to present the statue of the thinker, because this was the actual murder weapon, not some stupid clock. Yep. Oh, here we go. You with your objections and evidence. He's getting real hot under the collar now. We're starting to boil him up. He's like, I saw it there. It's a clock. So now Prosecutor Payne's going to jump in and try and explain how that statue could possibly be a clock. So apparently it actually is a clock, because if you tilt the neck, it says the time out loud. And since it doesn't look like a clock, he submitted it as a statue. So he's basically trying to hide evidence. Okay. Oh, we have tons of problems with this testimony. How could he know that it was a clock unless he held it in his hands? Exactly. But he testified that he never went in the apartment, so something is strange here. So now we get an option here, because he went into the apartment. That's how we knew it was a clock. Okay, so now we're getting down to it. We're starting to figure out that he's the actual murderer, so we're going to go ahead and prove it. So he struck Sidney with the clock, and it was triggered by the voice, and the sound was pretty ingrained into his head. So that's what we're claiming, but now we have to prove it. So you'll recognize this from the original cutscene where Mr. Selwood has the thinker in his hand, and he's like, oh crap, I just murdered this person, and now we need to prove that he's the murderer. So now Prosecutor Payne's going to say that it's baseless conjecture, but we can tell by looking at the witness that we're pretty close to finishing this one up. Excuse me. So now he can't really get his story straight, and oh, he's gonna throw his toupee at us. That was gross. And he's pretty upset. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up. Yep, now he's just scrambling at this point, saying that he definitely saw Larry and that he should burn for it. So now Prosecutor Payne says that we have no evidence supporting our claims. So, claim the sound of the witness came from the clock. Do we have any evidence? So we do have evidence. So we're just going to try sounding it. So we're going to go ahead and sound the clock, and it's going to make a very interesting noise. I think it's 8:25. So the judge agrees that it's a pretty strange way. Okay, so now the clock said it was 8:25, but it's actually 11:25. So there's a discrepancy in the time from the clock itself and the actual time. So we're trying to determine so right now we think it's 3 hours slow, which was the discrepancy between what Mr. Selwood heard and the actual time of death. Because remember, he said it was 1 p.m. when she was actually killed at 4 p.m. So now we're going to see if we can talk his way out of this one. Oh, here we go. While it may seem like that clock is running 3 hours slow, it proves nothing, he says. So he wants us to prove that it was running slow on the day of the murder, and that we have no case otherwise. So we can prove that, just Phoenix doesn't seem to remember how. So the judge says, no go, we can't indict this witness. And that's it. So now he's going to get angry, saying that he came all the way down here to testify, and this is how he gets treated, and blah, 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 crying like a criminal. Well, we know he's the real murderer. We're going to figure it out. So we're going to get a little help from Mia here. And poor Larry, he's about to get convicted, unfortunately. Not so fast. So Mia's going to jump in. And we have to just think outside the box. How could the clock be 3 hours slow? So we just got to think outside the box and don't waste time doubting the facts. Just assume it was 3 hours slow and think through it. Why was it slow? Figure it out. Yes, I can think of a reason. Yes, so we have found evidence to support this, and we're going to use the passport because she was in Paris the day before. So yep, the day before the murder, and as we all know, time difference here in Paris is 9 hours. So when it's 4 p.m. here, it's 1 a.m. there. So that's why the clock said 1 o'clock. And Phoenix can make a bad pun here. Mr. Saw It, or should I say, Mr. Did It. And now he's going to go rabbit and fall over. So Mr. Sowit's been arrested and taken away, and we have finally proved our case and set Larry free. So now the judge is going to give his verdict for Larry. Not guilty, and confetti, and we win. So now we're going to go into the courtroom lobby and celebrate our first victory as a lawyer. So yeah, Frank Sowit's a common burglar. He's a newspaper salesman, like we discussed. And on that day, he just happened to be in Cindy's apartment. And she came home while he was inside. And he just beat her in the head with the thinker. And tried to blame Larry for it. So now we're gonna get the final scenes here from the tutorial chapter. And Larry's still all upset and being dramatic. So we wanted to tell him that she was basically playing him, but to try and make him happy, but we're just going to let it go. And Mia gets his name wrong and starts calling him Harry Butts, which is hilarious. So Larry is really thankful that we helped him out here, and he's going to take us out to dinner. And he's going to give us a second statue of the Thinker as a present, because he was the one who made the statue. He made one for her and one for him. So Larry was really into her. He's really sad that she just didn't feel the same way. But we're going to try and prove that he did. Yeah, so we're going to show Larry that she actually did like him, because she carried around this big heavy statue even though she went overseas. So now we're going to find out that this thinker statue is going to come into play again in the next chapter. And we're just getting a refresher that we have to believe in our clients and all that mushy stuff. And always believe in ourselves. Yep. So we're going to go get some dinner with me and Harry / Larry, whatever you want to call him, and call it a day. So the first trial comes to a close. And that's it. So that's the end of the tutorial chapter. We're going to end the video here. If you like this video and you want us to continue, leave a like, subscribe, all that good stuff, and we'll definitely have some more videos in the future. So again, this has been Baited Gaming. My name is Joe. Have a great day.